Hello everyone. Today I will discuss the gross anatomy of the humerus. This is the humerus bone and it has three parts: the upper end, the lower end and the shaft. Now the head. Head is directed medially. Head is directed medially, backward and slightly upward, and it articulates with the glenoid cavity of the scapula. This is the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity of the scapula, and this humerus it articulates. This humerus it articulates with the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity, and this it articulates with the glenoid cavity of the scapula to form the shoulder joints. Now the head. The head forms about one third. The head it forms about one third of the sphere and is much larger than the glenoid cavity. See the head and also see the glenoid cavity. It is much larger than the glenoid cavity. It is, and the head of the humerus it is much larger than the glenoid cavity. Now the line separating the head. The line separating the head from the rest of the upper end is called the anatomical neck. This is the anatomical neck. This is the anatomical neck. This is the anatomical neck. And there are the two tubercle. One is the lesser tubercle and second is the greater tubercle. See the lesser tubercle and this is the greater tubercle. And in between the two tubercle there is the groove that is called the bicipital groove or the intertubercle sulcus. Now this lesser tubercle it is an elevation on the anterior aspect of the upper end, and greater tubercle. The greater tubercle it is an elevation that forms the lateral part of the upper end. Now there is the sulcus, that is called the intertubercle sulcus. This is the intertubercle sulcus, and this intertubercle sulcus also called the bicipital groove that separates the lesser tubercle medially from the anterior part of the greater tubercle. And the sulcus, this sulcus has the two lip. One is the medial lip. This sulcus has the medial lip and the lateral lip. The medial lip and the lateral lip, and thus represents the downward prolongation of this lesser and the greater tubercle. Now the narrow line separating the upper end of the humerus from the shaft, that is called the surgical neck. The narrow line that separating the head of the humerus from the shaft is called the surgical neck. This is the anatomical neck, this is the anatomical neck, and this is the surgical neck. Next is the morphological neck. What is the morphological neck? The morphological neck it is like, if this is the surgical neck, the morphological neck it is like 0.5 centimeter above the surgical neck, and it shows the position of the epiphyseal line. The shaft is rounded it is on the upper half and triangular in the lower half. The shaft is rounded in the upper half and it is triangular. See, it is triangular in the lower half. The triangular in the lower half. Now the border, the upper one third of the anterior border. There is the anterior border, the free border, the anterior border, and the medial border and the lateral border. They are the three border and the three surfaces. The shaft has three border and the three surfaces. Now the anterior border that forms the lateral lip. The anterior border that forms the lateral lip of the intertubercle sulcus. This is the anterior border that forms the lateral lip. And lower half of the anterior border, this is the anterior border, the lower half of the anterior border it is smooth and rounded. Now the lateral border. Now this is the lateral border. This is the lateral border. The lateral border it is prominent only in the lower end. The lateral border it is prominent only in the lower end. It is prominent in the lower end and it forms the lateral supracondylar ridge. And in the middle part it is interrupted. By the radial or the spiral groove. The upper part of the medial border that forms the medial lip of the intertubercle sulcus. Now this is the medial border, and the upper part of the medial border, this is the medial border. Here is the medial supracondylar ridge, the medial border that forms the medial lip of the intertubercle sulcus. This is the intertubercle sulcus, and this is the medial lip of the intertubercle sulcus. Now the surfaces. There are the three surfaces. What are the surfaces? Anterolateral surface, the anteromedial surface, and this is the posterior surface. This is the posterior surface. See the posterior surface. Posterior surface. The anteromedial surface, the anteromedial, the anterolateral, and the posterior surface of the. This is the posterior surface. Now the anterolateral surface, it lies between the anterior border and the lateral border. The anterior border and the lateral border. The anteromedial surface lies between the anterior border and the medial border, anterior border and the medial border, and the posterior surface that lies in between the two, that is the medial border and the lateral border, that is the posterior surface. Now there is the lower end. Now the lower end. The lower end of the humerus that form the condyle, which is expanded from side to side and has articular, and some are the non-articular part. Articular parts, that is called the capitulum and the trochlea. The capitulum, this is the capitulum, and this is the trochlea. Capitulum and the trochlea. Capitulum, it is a rounded projection which articulates with the head of the radius. Here the head of the radius articulates, and the trochlea, it is a pulley shaped and it articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna. This is the capitulum, and this is the capitulum, and this is the trochlea. It articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna, and the medial edge of the trochlea. This is the medial edge. This is the medial edge of the trochlea. It projects down 6 mm more than the lateral edge, and this results in the formation of the carrying angle. Why? Because medial edge of the trochlea, this is the medial edge of the trochlea, it projects down 6 mm more than the lateral edge, and this results in the formation of the carrying angle. There is the articular and the non-articular part. It includes the medial epicondyle. There is the medial epicondyle, and this is the lateral epicondyle. The medial epicondyle and the lateral epicondyle. Non-articular parts include the medial epicondyle and the lateral epicondyle. It is a prominent bony projection on the medial side of the lower end, and is subcutaneous. The medial epicondyle, it is subcutaneous and easily felt on the medial side of the elbow. The lateral epicondyle is smaller than the medial epicondyle, and anterolateral part has a muscular impression. The sharp lateral margin just above the lower end is called the lateral supracondylar ridge. Now there is the medial supracondylar ridge. It is similar ridge on the medial side. The coronoid fossa, it is a depression just above the anterior aspect of the trochlea. This is the capitulum and this is the trochlea, and the coronoid fossa, this is the this is the olecranon fossa, and here is the coronoid and the radial fossa is also present. The coronoid fossa, it is depression just above the anterior aspect of the trochlea. This is the trochlea, and this is the trochlea, and this is the coronoid fossa. And it accommodates the coronoid process of the ulna when the elbow is in flexed position. It is a depression just above the anterior aspect of the trochlea. Now the radial fossa. This fossa, this is the coronoid, and this is the radial fossa, and this is the olecranon fossa. This is the olecranon fossa. Now this radial fossa, it is a depression present just above the anterior aspect of the capitulum. This is the capitulum, and this is the radial fossa. Now the olecranon fossa, this is the olecranon fossa, and It lies just above the posterior aspect of the trochlea, and it accommodates the olecranon portion of the ulna when the elbow is extended. This is the gross anatomy of the humerus. I again repeat, this is the bicipital groove. This is the bicipital groove, and it has the two lip, the medial lip and the lateral lip. This is the anatomical neck, and this is the surgical neck, and 5 centimeter above the surgical neck there is the morphological neck, and there is the deltoid tuberosity V-shaped. That is the deltoid tuberosity, and here is the medial supracondylar ridge and the lateral supracondylar ridge. This is the capitulum, and this is the trochlea. There is the radial fossa and the coronoid fossa, and this is the olecranon fossa. This is the medial epicondyle, and this is the lateral epicondyle. In the next video, I will discuss about the muscle attachment from the humerus. Thank you.